Hi, this is Daryl Myatt from Keller, Texas. Today is Tuesday, February 15th, 2011. Had to think about that for a second. Yeah, it's 2011. Okay, let's have a look at what's going on today. This first story I'm going to talk about is out of WorldNet Daily. It says, all children to be registered in National Biometric Records Identity Tracking Scheme assembled under radar for Border Pass Program. This is out of Mexico. Below the radar of public opinion, Mexico has started to assemble the type of biometric national identity database that could be used to document names for a North American Trusted Traveler Border Pass Card, a plan already being developed by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security for Mexican citizens. It apparently would be similar to the program that has become commonplace in the European Union to allow free transit for EU citizens to move, live, and work wherever they choose within the EU, disregarding nation of origin and national border restrictions. On January 19, 2011, Mexico's President Felipe Calderon signed an executive order requiring within the next 5 years all Mexicans 17 years old and younger have a biometric national identity card that would include a facial photograph, all 10 fingerprints, and an iris scan. Okay, to carry out this presidential executive order, the Mexican Directorate General of the National Population Register plans to go to all the elementary schools in Mexico to record the required biometric information and issue individual identity cards. Okay, you're probably going, yeah, so big deal. What's the problem? I'm getting to that. Okay, let's see. While promoted as a way to prevent crime such as identity theft, Mexico has decided to begin with the nation's school children to create the type of biometric national identity database that will allow Mexican children as they grow up to already possess the biometric information they will need to obtain North American Trusted Traveler Border Pass cards the U.S. Department of Homeland Security is preparing to issue to Mexican citizens. Once they have this done, the second phase will include all Mexican adults. Then the third phase will be all foreigners residing in Mexico. And it's interesting. You can see pictures of these cards. The iris scan information is embedded in a barcode on the reverse of the card. Various biometric information, including invisibly in the card, including all 10 digits in fingerprints. Each card bears a unique personal ID number and a face photo designed to make sure that only one person to whom the card was issued can use the card. Next to the eagle symbol of Mexico at the top of the card reads United States of Mexico. Huh. United States of Mexico. I've never heard it called that, ever. Have you? Interesting. Here's the kicker, okay? Maybe by this point you're starting to catch on. You see where I'm going with this, but critics in Mexico have charged that the Mexican effort to enroll school children in a national biometric personal identity database involves the early implementation of an incremental New World Order plan designed to fit into initiatives designed under the Security and Prosperity Partnership to evolve the North American Free Trade Agreement into a continental or regional North American Union governmental structure. There's the kicker. Okay. Interesting. So, it's all fashioned after the European Union, which, you can go from Romania to Budapest to Poland to Germany to France to Spain to Italy without any border checks. You got your card, you can go anywhere. It's like, oh, got my card. They're going to try to do that here. So a North American Union, Mexico, United States, and Canada, all one, all the same. North American Union. This is part of the road to get us to a one world government. Now, this one world government is one of those things that no matter how much you want to fight it, no matter how much you're against it, it's going to happen. You know why? Because it's prophesied right here. It's in Bible prophecy. There will be a one world government. I promise you. So, what's that going to look like on the way to becoming a one world government? Will there be regional places like the European Union, the North American Union, the African Union, I don't know. That's probably going to mean that American sovereignty will become a thing of the past. The American Constitution will become just a useless piece of paper as we fall under a global government and we fall under national government rule. I know I have mixed feelings on this. I don't want to see America fall into that category. I don't want to see American sovereignty go away, but we probably will see that. Hate to rain on your parade, but this initiative is just another step to get us closer to that one world government. And let me just say, the one world government will be run by the Antichrist. He's going to have a 3.5-year reign to where he pretty much is the leader in charge. But let me just also present to you too that when Christ returns, the Antichrist and Satan will be thrown into the lake of fire. This one world government is being set up so Jesus can ultimately take control. Okay, so yes, while it may appear to be a bad thing for us now, in the end, God's plan is perfect, and what appears to be a bad thing is actually a good thing. Because Jesus Christ will step in. He will rule this world with an iron scepter, the Bible says. So this has to be set up so he can come in and take his rightful place as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Might be a little painful on the way, but I'm going to trust in God, and so should you, that everything's going to work out just fine for those who trust in him. Alright, let's talk about something else. This story out of yahoo.com. Egypt says the Muslim Brotherhood plans a political party. Ooh, big shock. This out of Cairo. The long-banned Muslim Brotherhood said today that it will form a political party once democracy is established in Egypt, but promised not to field a candidate for president, trying to allay fears at home and abroad that it seeks power. Still, the fundamentalist movement is poised to be a significant player in the new order. Egypt's new military rulers gave a strong sign they recognize that the Brotherhood, which calls for creation of an Islamic state in the Arab world's most populous nation, can no longer be barred from politics after the mass uprising that forced out President Hosni Mubarak with 18 days of protest. Let's see. Have several other stories on this as well, so I don't want to read everything in all the stories. Let me just see if there's anything here. Okay, well, so, I wouldn't be surprised if these guys don't change their name, just because, what do you think of when you hear the name Muslim Brotherhood? It doesn't sound peaceful at all. Doesn't sound like something I want to be a part of. Here's another story out of the Jerusalem Post. The head of Egypt human rights group fears a Brotherhood takeover. A political refugee in Canada and president and founder of One Free World International says true democracy is 5 years away. Okay, Reverend Majid el-Shafie, an Egyptian Muslim who converted to Christianity and was tortured and condemned to death, fears that the current upheaval in Egypt will strengthen the Muslim Brotherhood. Shafie is alive today because he managed to escape Egypt and get to Israel by driving a jet ski from Taba in Sinai to Eilat in 1998. He was eventually given political asylum in Canada, now lives in Toronto. He's the president and founder of the largest human rights organization monitoring events in Egypt, known as One Free World International, el-Shafie Ministries. Let's see. His organization monitors violations in Egypt and other Arab states against the Christian minority, and has 24,000 people in Egypt alone updating him on the situation on the ground there. Let's see. He goes on to say the Muslim Brotherhood has used the demonstrations in Egypt to advance its agenda. They're going street to street, door to door, asking people to go out and demonstrate. They want a hand in the new government. They're being more aggressive, more active, and are coming out in full power. He says the Muslim Brotherhood is popular with the poor, illiterate people of Egypt because they provide the basic food and necessities to them. The Muslim Brotherhood is very wealthy. They own supermarkets in Egypt, and they get funds from countries such as Iran and Saudi Arabia. He believes that if the elections are held in Egypt in the near future, the Muslim Brotherhood will likely come to power. Shafie, who's 34, was born a Muslim in Cairo to a distinguished family of lawyers and judges. He was exposed at an early age through a Christian friend to hatred toward the Christian minority in Egypt. He decided to convert to Christianity and subsequently wrote a book about it. As a result, he became an outcast and a victim of oppression. He began a mission to ensure that the Christians in Egypt had the same legal rights as the Muslim community. After beginning a ministry which built 2 churches, a Bible school, and a medical clinic, he established a newspaper to request that the Egyptian government grant equal rights to the Christian community. The government did not tolerate this, and he was arrested in 1998 and taken to the torture section of the Abu Zabil prison in Cairo. He was jailed and tortured for 7 days, then put under house arrest for 3 months. After receiving the death penalty, he escaped house arrest and hid with a Bedouin family for 2 months in the Sinai. Interesting. So, here's a man, Muslim, converted to Christianity. Of course, his family wanted to kill him for that. Always amazes me. And they're still called the peaceful religion, but if you convert out of it, they'll try to kill you. That's how peaceful they are. Anyway, interesting story, this man. If you get a chance to read about him, I suggest you do so, because converted to Christianity, realizes the lies that the Muslims believe, the lies that is Islam, the lies the Quran clearly promotes. And, you know, it's just funny, you never hear too often about Muslims who convert to Christianity, but it happens all the time. It's happening every day. I've had several send me messages saying, you know what, after seeing a few of your videos, I've come to accept the truth of Christianity. Okay, so I've had Muslims convert on my channel. Yes, coming out of the cave and into the truth of light, or light of truth. Okay, I'm dyslexic. Don't hold that against me. Okay, here's something out of Israel National News in the same strain. U.S. columnists warn against Muslim Brotherhood. Why are we hearing so many bad things about these people? Following the initial euphoria in the U.S. about the achievement of freedom in Egypt, columnists are now warning that the medium and long-range prognosis does not bode well, neither in Egypt nor for the West. Let's see. Writing for the JewishWorldReview.com, author Professor Waller R. Newell of Carleton University in Ottawa says that historically the initial reformist phase of revolutions such as that in Egypt, focusing on individual rights and freedoms, is swept aside by radicals who want an egalitarian and collectivist political order. Specifically, Newell writes, in Egypt we can predict a similar outcome for Mohammed el-Baradei and other reformers opening to the Muslim Brotherhood's leaders. Again, I'm not going to read this whole story, but I want to read this part. Muslim Brotherhood member gives away the secret. A senior member of the Brotherhood has already announced that their aim will be to prepare the Egyptian people for war with Israel. Hello? You listening? And he called for the Suez Canal to be closed so as to disrupt the West's oil trade. Another announced that a newly elected legislature's first duty will be to reconsider the peace treaty with Israel. As a matter of course, as soon as they can, the Brotherhood will terminate Egypt's tourist industry, one of its chief sources of income, and an employer of many of the people demonstrating in Cairo today, because they regard tourists as a foreign taint and their interest in ancient ruins as promoting paganism. As Islamist revolutionaries, whatever more palatable image they may choose to present for now, they do not have the slightest interest in raising the Egyptian people's standard of living, because they detest liberal individualism and economic freedom. They detest it. Huh. And you think you want Sharia law in America? God help us if they ever achieve that. I know too many red-blooded Americans that'll die fighting against Sharia law in my country. Anyway, okay, I'm not going to continue in this story. Well, it talks about the Muslim Brotherhood's true goals, and I talked to you a few days ago in that book, The Jihad Way, where they explain they want global Islamic domination. But Rubin Report's blog site, written by Barry Rubin, details the dangers of the Muslim Brotherhood. He says that contrary to El-Barade's reassurances, excuse me, the organization has a great deal to do with extremism, a distinctively Egyptian Sunni form of extremism. The Brotherhood is quite unhappy with Egyptian society and wants to change it drastically. That's why it is a revolutionary group, even though it has been patient and careful about pushing the revolution. It dissolved its terrorist wing only because of government pressure and has advocated terrorism against Americans and Israelis. It applauds and incites the assassinations of secular activists and Egypt's leading novelists. It sounds quite like Al-Qaeda. Interesting. I think we need to keep an eye on this. Sorry. Here's something out of Yahoo. Iran MPs want the death penalty for opposition leaders. Really? Iranian lawmakers urged judiciary on Tuesday to hand out death penalties to opposition leaders for fomenting unrest in the Islamic State after a rally in which one person was killed and dozens were wounded. So Ahmadinejad wants all the opposition leaders to be killed. I guess that's a good way of ensuring your re-election. Seems a little shady to me. Sorry guys, fighting something here. Bear with me. Here's something out of Arutz Sheva. Lieutenant General Benny Gantz is officially installed as the IDF Chief of Staff. Newly installed IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Benny Gantz began his tenure at the Western Wall in an investiture ceremony on Monday afternoon. He, along with outgoing Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Gabi Ashkenazi, conducted prayers for the welfare of Israel and the Jewish people and placed notes in the Wailing Wall. Sorry guys, I'm kind of like really hurting here. Forgive me. Sorry. You people with your headphones, please. I'm sorry. Here's something out of Israel Today. Jordan government shakeup creates tension with Israel. Okay, Jordan, despite being the region's most stable Arab regime, has not been immune to the revolutionary wave sweeping the Middle East. In order to head off any serious threat to his rule, King Abdullah II this month fired the government cabinet and appointed a new one. But that move has resulted in new tension with Israel. The newly appointed Jordanian Justice Minister Hussein Majali on Monday joined a demonstration demanding the early release of jailed Army Corporal Ahmad Dkamseh. In 1997, Dkamseh massacred 7 11-year-old Israeli girls while they were on a field trip. People like that, don't you just want to slap them upside the head a few times and just punch them a little bit? He killed 7 11-year-old Israeli schoolgirls. Here's the awful part. At Monday's rally, the new Jordan Justice Minister referred to this blood-soaked guy as a hero for butchering young Jewish girls and insisted that he doesn't deserve prison. I tell you, the enemies of Israel are crazy, okay? And they're just lunatics. I'm sorry. Have you heard this? Mubarak falls into a coma. The now ex-leader of Egypt fell into a coma Saturday at his residence in the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh. An Egyptian newspaper reported yesterday. Interesting. I think he needs our prayers. Don't know if this whole shakeup caused it or not. Alright, I'm running a little bit long today, so I want to skip this next story. And this one out of Newsmax.com. The FBI says there's a 100% chance of a weapons of mass destruction attack in America. Said that it's not a question of if, but when. I'm not going to get into this whole thing. It's out of Newsmax.com, but there's this whole report, and it's pretty gruesome. But I recall in the Bible, God says no weapon formed against you will prosper. So I'm going to go with that and not worry about any weapons of mass destruction on American soil. Okay, Talking about parables. Let's go to Matthew 13, verse 31 through 32. Another parable he put forth to them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all the seeds, but when it is grown, it is greater than the herbs, and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and nest in its branches. Okay, in sharing the truths about the kingdom of heaven with his disciples, Jesus told a story about a man who planted a mustard seed in his field. Now, initially nothing seems out of the ordinary, but then this parable takes a very interesting turn. In verse 32 of Matthew 13, it says, But when it is grown, it is greater than the herbs, and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and nest in its branches. Now, the interesting thing here is what Jesus' audience would have immediately recognized, is that mustard seeds don't normally grow like this. They grow into shrubs that can be, 15 feet tall, but not into trees that birds nest in. Okay, so what's Jesus trying to say with this unnatural growth? Okay, remember this parable is pointing to the kingdom of heaven, and that this kingdom, and that the conditions that this kingdom will experience. Now, this unnatural growth is an acknowledgement that the kingdom of heaven, as represented by the Christian church, will experience unnatural growth. It will be much bigger than expected, and that can certainly be said of the church since Christ shared this parable, don't you think? It has grown quite considerably. But there's another wrinkle to this parable here. The birds that nest in the branches. Now, in the last parable we talked about, the parable about the sower, Jesus identified these birds of the air as being a satanic influence. Right? You can read that in Matthew 13, verse 19. Said, the birds came and got the seed. That was Satan. Okay? So when we put all this together, if you really dig into this, we can identify the birds that nest in the church's branches are actually the enemy. Okay? They're of the enemy. So this parable is actually a warning. It's a warning to the church that although it's going to grow, its growth is going to attract the enemy. That's a warning we all need to take to heart, and we should respond by being very watchful and very mindful. Remember, Jesus told us that be careful that many will try to deceive you, that there will be wolves in sheep's clothing, that there is going to be a lot of false prophets, false teachers, false Christians, and even false Christs that come and say, I am He, I am the Christ. So I think this parable is a warning. Jesus is saying, yes, the church is going to grow. It's going to grow unnaturally large, but it's going to attract the enemy, and some of the enemy will actually be nesting in the branches of the church. So, I pray that each and every one of us will have discernment, that we will not be deceived, that we'll know right from wrong, that we'll know truth from false, that we'll know things that are of God from the things that are of the enemy. There's a reason Jesus has warned us many times not to be deceived. Okay? If they're not talking to you about this gospel, then they're deceiving you. The tough thing is, many times, they're talking to you about this gospel, but in a twisted way that's hard for the new believer to understand. Okay? So my prayer for each and every one of you is that God will give you the wisdom, the discernment, and the guidance you need, that you will not fall prey to any deceivers or any false doctrine. That's it. So good for you. God bless you. Hope to see you again tomorrow.